Look, the bottom line is we're going to win Michigan. Let me tell you why we're going to win Michigan. First, El Sayed has brought in new energy and new talent into the Democratic Party, but also in Michigan itself.
Meanwhile,
I finally framed the Cutie Cinderella newspaper from 9/11, the morning of 9/12, the newspaper right there, and I moved the North Korean poster up in place of the fan art.
So let's talk about Hasan Piker and his infinite stupidity, because, folks, it is not exactly much of a secret that Democrats have more or less made this guy a campaign ambassador or election surrogate for 2026. That is very evident by his relationship with Mamdani, especially with one Abdul-El Sayed. It's very telling as well that even Democrat leadership refuses to offer any condemnation of this guy. In fact, to quote Chuck Schumer's own words, this guy's no longer a radical extremist. In fact, he is part of the quote-unquote big tent that encloses the Democrat Party. So there you go. Now a mainstream ambassador of the Democrat Party. Here is the thing. You would probably think, if you're the Democrats, at least hope, that if you're going to give Hasan this big platform, at least make him behave. At least maybe he'll act a little bit more professional and not engage in a lot of the same radical or stupid behavior that got him in trouble to begin with. But ladies and gentlemen, today I have to inform the Democrats, this is Hasan Piker you are dealing with. He is both not a very good person and not a very smart person, which is to say, of course, you're going to get exactly what you asked for, and that is to this very day. Now that Hasan Piker, again, is being given this mainstream platform in the Democrat Party, still mocking political violence against conservatives on the campaign trail, still dressing up as Mao Zedong and saying a lot of ridiculous things, which I have to be honest, I certainly am not making the claim that Hasan Piker is some type of secret right-wing asset, but I do think he's genuinely so stupid that in some ways, by de facto, he is serving as that person. Because, for example, when I try to say that the Democrat Party is the party of political violence and organized communism, some would like to look at me as if I'm crazy or I'm exaggerating. But then when you have Hasan Piker, mainstream Democrat ambassador, doing exactly that, it kind of proves my point right, you know? And it's like, okay, thank you, Democrats, for mainstreaming this guy so I can show you what you really stand for, not behind closed doors, but publicly so. Even, for example, when it comes to the whole Candace Owens debate, and, you know, I've said people have been upset at me, but what did I say from the beginning? She's serving as a communist asset. The entire point of this supposed Israel conspiracy theory is ultimately to exonerate the violent left and take attention and blame away from the violent left to distract the political right from who its true enemy actually is and the true face of evil that actually shot Charlie Kirk. And Hasan Piker is doing that now. He's coming out and saying, yes, we as the leftists really appreciate what Candace Owens is saying. Candace Owens is saving us. And it's like, you know, how is it that this guy just manages to do such an effective job of proving me right at every step of the way? Right. So not very good news if you're the Democrats, obviously hoping that Hasan Piker will somehow change. But after all, why should he change? You really gave him no reason to. You know, if anything, you enabled these violent radicals for a long time to the point where you gave them so much control, such a long leash, that they now believe they are in control, which to an extent I would argue they are, because you won't do anything to stop it. So, of course, don't regret it. Don't act surprised when the people who you've always known who they were, right? They come in, now they're basically being put in charge, and yeah, newsflash, they're not changing one single bit. Why would they? Let's talk about it, though, guys. First, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel. And with all of that said, let's of course start here with a recent interview of Hasan Piker addressing the question of, first of all, whether Abdul-El Sayed is still talking to him, but especially take a listen to this, right? Just how many Democrats behind the scenes are now in constant communication with Hasan Piker. It's actually crazy to say out loud. This random Twitch streamer who's gone famous for saying things like, America deserved 9/11, soak the streets in capitalist blood, celebrating assassinations, you know, all that type of stuff. Suddenly now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know at what point this guy became the Democrat Party's top political consultant, right? When his endorsement or his thoughts became so significant in terms of the dynamics of the DNC or something like that. But apparently, yes, apparently now, if you're a Democrat who wants to seek political office or make some type of major decision, that all runs through Hasan Piker, right? It used to be who was in charge of the party, you know, Obama, Clyburn, those characters like that. I guess now it's Hasan Piker. Everyone has to listen to crazy Twitch streamer Hasan Piker. He's the idiot running the asylum. Take a listen.
Has your usefulness politically largely passed? Are the likes of Abdul-El Sayed or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders no longer taking your calls?
Well, I can't speak for Abdul-El Sayed, but no, I don't. The calls have not stopped. I can tell you that.
Yeah, so he said it himself. Even if the Democrats maybe appear a little bit less in public alongside Hasan because it's general election season, he's still calling the shots here. He's still now something of the just influential voice, right, within the Democrat Party. And the only reason I could believe that to be the case is simply because they're all in lockstep with this guy. They agree with this guy's politics. And I think that tells you a lot of what you need to know. But here is the thing. Again, you might think to yourself that even if you are something of a political radical, maybe play the game, right? At the point where now you're kind of being promoted by the party, you're this mainstream person, there's a lot of eyeballs on you. Let me behave a little bit. Let me maybe tone down my rhetoric, tone down my politics. After all, this is something we've seen actually happen repeatedly. Plenty of Democrats, like Karen Bass is just one example that, grew up as radical communists. And then when they got into politics, they try to clean up the image. At least just make the attempt to say, I'm not that radical anymore. I'm not that crazy. Please, kind of try to disarm your critics a little bit. But ladies and gentlemen, as I said, this is Hasan Piker we're dealing with. We're dealing with someone who's not very smart, who has very low impulse control. And so today, while at a tour in the city of Seattle, and, this kind of thing, this Hasan Piker rally is by de facto serving as a form of a Democrat midterm rally in itself, right? Let's do IRL events. Let's get energy going and enthusiasm going on the left-wing side. And how did he choose, now that, again, he's like this mainstream ambassador of the Democrat Party? Okay, fine. I said the 9/11 thing 7 years ago, bro. Why are you still talking about it? Okay. Well, here he was just today, I kid you not, mocking the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Right, after we have been saying for the past year, hey, this is kind of the Democrat stance. Whatever rhetoric they try to give about vaguely condemning violence, they absolutely enable political violence on their side, and they engage in stochastic terrorism, and they do all this type of stuff, and it's very telling that such huge swaths of their voters were celebrating his death and doing all this stuff, right? And of course, we were shut down by liberals where they're saying, that's not true, bro, you're crazy. The Democrats said they condemn violence. Okay, well now here is their election spokesperson for 2026 getting on stage, and I kid you not, singing the We Are Charlie Kirk song, which if you're not familiar, that is basically this AI song that's meant to mock Charlie Kirk and stuff that was made after he died. And here he is on stage wearing the Mao Zedong suit still to this day, by the way, going out there and singing that as, again, the now surrogate of the Democrat Party. Yeah, so totally classy behavior that will definitely not be used against you on the campaign trail or against your BFF, right? But you see exactly what I'm saying about everything Hasan does before and is doing right now, just kind of being this big thing that proves us correct. Because what have I been trying to say? Yes, they do actually want to off us. Yes, they do want to us. That is a mainstream political position of the left in America. Okay, that's not an exaggeration. Yeah, they are violent communists. Like that, all that is all true, right? And maybe someone tries to come back and say, no, it's not, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, that's Hasan Piker. That's now not just Twitch streamer Hasan Piker, Democrat surrogate Hasan Piker, right? And then they still want to convince us that really, they just want healthcare or something like that, right? Because the left always pulls this bait and switch slogan where, they'll celebrate crazy stuff like transing the kids. They'll celebrate political assassinations and political violence very publicly like this. And then when you get mad at them, Or, for example, when the federal government implies that, they're engaging in terrorism and they need to be cracked down upon, they say, this is just because we want healthcare. We just want healthcare, bro. As Drew points out here, and it's true, yeah. He's just a nice guy who wants to give you healthcare, which is why he's gleefully dancing on the grave of a conservative who was shot in the neck and, yes, in front of his infant children. Yeah. But this is the party of healthcare, guys. That's all they stand for. They just care about healthcare and affordability. As if, by the way, they're even substantively correct on those issues, as if their solutions to those issues are even the correct ones, and do not, in the process, just cause significantly worse outcomes on both of those things. But even if that were true, even if they actually have the solution to healthcare, it comes at the cost of apparently, committing violence against everyone else, right? And this is nothing new. I mean, just over the weekend, we also saw this drag queen show that's likewise mocking the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But yeah, they literally just want healthcare, right? But, this again is not a surprise. So this is something we all remember. I know there's this psychosis where now we're just supposed to pretend as if that didn't happen, but no, large swaths of leftists in this country, including people who may have been neighbors of yours, family members of yours, co-workers of yours, right? We kind of just had this big moment where everyone learned actually, like, yeah, the left supports political violence on a massive scale. Like, that is actually a thing they believe. Okay, and they're saying that publicly. But of course, ever since there's been all these like bullshit conspiracy theories being pushed and stuff to totally deflect the energy from the very obvious takeaway, the very obvious kind of concerning thing we learned, because I guess, I don't know, it's a defense mechanism or something. It's a coping mechanism. People don't want to handle that uncomfortable truth. So they deflect and say, surely it must have been this or that. It was Israel, it was the Egyptian Air Force. It was some inside job, whatever. Okay, still regardless though. Here we have yet, if you didn't remember that, here you have another reminder, yes, this is the mainstream stance of not just the political left, the Democrat Party, right? According to Chuck Schumer, let's not forget, this is an acceptable position to hold within the alleged big tent of the Democrat Party, because that's what he said. They asked him about Hasan Piker. They asked him about Abdul-El Sayed. He said, guys, we're a big tent. So apparently that big tent, first of all, is allowed to include violent communists who want to murder conservatives. That's what the Big Ten is all about, which, by the way, I would even go one step further, because I still think it's underplaying it to say, oh, that's just the big tent. We allow those people to caucus with us or vote for us. No, it's not that. Actually, they control your party, right? It doesn't matter, as we pointed out many times, whether Chuck Schumer is the Senate leader or whatever, and he claims the establishment's still in power. If every decision you're making is ultimately to grovel and appease and do the bidding of the DSA because you're terrified of them or you're secretly aligned with them or whatever it is, and you go out there publicly and say, look, we don't disagree with these people. It's just about strategy and rhetoric. So maybe our ideas are more practical, but the end goal is the same. Then it's not just about the big tent anymore. Like, it's not just, oh, those people are within your coalition. No, these people are your coalition. These people are leading your party. They're leading your coalition itself. So do keep that in mind. Contrast that, or not contrast that, just compare that, right, with the behavior they're engaging in very publicly and explicitly. And just do understand everything we've said about political violence on the left once again got vindicated, and now they're doing it right in front of our faces. So very smart of you, Hasan Piker, who, by the way, earlier this summer, spoke in front of the College Democrats of America, because obviously, again, he is a mainstream figure in the Democrat Party. He may be at the DNC by 2028. We're not sure on that one, but once again, yep, still, you notice he wears this everywhere. Everywhere he does a political campaign rally, always wearing the Mao Zedong suit. But he's not a communist. He's just one big joke, guys. Okay.
No more to Trumpism, but no more to the Democrats who compromise, who conciliate, and who betray us. No more to the fascist reactionaries, but no more to the Democrats who will collaborate and cooperate with the fascists, who will fund ICE, who will fund Israel, who will help poison the planet, who will stiff workers and help bosses. We don't need those Democrats anymore.
Yeah, so allow me to translate. What he's really saying is no more to a Democrat Party that, let's say, partially condemns political violence, partially or at least performatively believes in things like borders or American sovereignty or anything along those lines. We need a full, this is what he's saying. Hasan Piker wants a full-on Democrat party that goes 100% alongside, mocking political assassinations of conservatives and full open borders, full violent communism. Because, of course, as we've said a million times, these people are violent communists. That is the whole thing, right? And we have made that case before, but it becomes especially easy of a case to make when Hasan Piker, again, becomes this mainstream spokesperson and surrogate for the Democrat Party. So you know how that stuff goes. So on one hand, it's certainly concerning that, any facet of the country is going this way. And objectively, it is not a good thing that one of the two major political parties in this country allows this type of stuff in their alleged Big Tent. Okay, that is objectively unhealthy for America. On the flip side, if we're being very cynical about certain elections this year, obviously, Hasan Piker's recent behavior is only going to reinforce the narrative that his BFF, Abdul-El Sayed, is the wrong candidate for Michigan. A lot's obviously been made as of late of Jewish voters in Michigan and how this historically liberal voting bloc kind of is flipping, or they feel betrayed by the nomination of Sayed or whatever. But let's be honest, it's not just about them. In general, Michigan is a politically moderate state. It is a battleground state. It is a swing state. Among working class Union Democrats, among independents, among suburbanites, among many different subsets of the population, Abdul-El Sayed, via his number one campaign surrogate, Hasan Piker, has dug himself an even deeper hole.
He's shown contempt for the Jewish community and, frankly, for American values by making Hasan Piker a vicious anti-Semite and racist, his campaign surrogate, and someone he buddies up with before the primary and after the primary. He's never disavowed Hasan's anti-Semitism, a man who's called Orthodox Jews like me inbred. When Abdul-El Sayed was asked about the terrorist who attempted to blow up a synagogue right here in Michigan with hundreds of children, like Sailor, hundreds of children, all he said, hurt people, hurt people. Sadly, Abdul-El Sayed has shown only contempt for Jews as a people and called my people bloodthirsty, and the reason Michigan, our great state of Michigan, doesn't have the funds it needs.
Yeah, and let me just say, too, that regardless of whatever the terminally online anti-Israel movement wants to claim, these are not good quotes, okay? These are things that are going to be used against Abdul-El Sayed and Hasan Piker in the election. They're going to actually be very effective and resonate and ultimately come off as politically toxic to normal, real voters that exist in this country. I know you guys clearly have no ability to influence real-world elections, which explains a lot of recent election results in the United States. And, you claiming you were going to win and then you didn't, or you massively underperformed, and this is kind of actually true in both parties, but, we know how that stuff's been going. But I mean, yeah, that's just going to happen. This is not politically smart to be embracing, and that really does go without saying, okay? And I do believe that there will be at least some moderate crossover, if not a dramatic crossover, of not just Jewish Democrats, but a lot of just generally more Democrat-leaning independents or moderates or, union workers, people like that, who just don't want to vote for this character because they rightfully identify him as being politically toxic. I bring that up because, again, we saw that happen in the primary, okay? The moment I saw how much he underperformed expectations against Haley Stevens, I said, okay, wait a minute, there might be something here. And so I still believe that to this day. But anyways, in closing here about Hasan Piker, let's get to the part that always loses me subscribers, but I don't care, okay? People need to come to reality about this. It's also very telling. For example, when the worst people I know endorse the other worst people I know. Okay, because take a look at this. So Hasan Piker has recently announced he's a fan of, guess what? Candace Owens. So in other words, I think it's very telling. Our message in all of our content is always that The right wing, the MAGA movement, we have to stay focused on the mission. We have to have strong friend-enemy distinction of what we're fighting, why we're fighting, who our enemy is. There's a lot of people right now who want to get distracted, for example. That's what I would argue, you know, this whole like Charlie Kirk theory really is. So let's go back to the people who, again, were mocking the assassination of Charlie Kirk, celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Very telling now, those people are getting behind Candace Owens. Take a listen to this. So it's not that he believes her. He recognizes that Tyler Robinson, the leftist, obviously shot Charlie Kirk. And I kid you not, Hasan Piker is cheering on Candace Owens because she, quote, single-handedly undermined the Republican initiative to martyrize Charlie Kirk and use that example to crack down on political dissent, aka the violent communist left. So take a listen to who's endorsing who. Very telling, by the way.
I can't speak out against this queen because this is a queen that successfully and single-handedly undermined the Republican initiative to martyrize Charlie Kirk and use that example to crack down on political dissent. She dropped a grenade on the discourse. You understand? So I'm with her. It's hard. It's hard for me. My brain says, no, it's probably Tyler Robinson. But my heart says, go, Candace, go. Keep cooking. You know? Does that make sense? I can't like her tweets because she blocked me many, many years ago. This is before she became our hero. Okay? Many, many years ago, Candace Owens blocked me. I've not been a fan of Candace Owens. I am a fan now.
Yeah, so I'm not here to gloat, but I would really like her fans who supposedly have been proclaiming to me that I'm wrong and she's a truth teller and she's really the good guy in this whole story. Please explain to me why Hasan Piker, of all people, is now singing her praises, right? If you're really on the right side of history or whatever, you're getting to the bottom of the truth. Why it is that the worst liars on the planet who, again, mocked and celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk are the ones who really appreciate what you're doing, right? Because people have been upset that for months, I have been saying she is acting as a communist asset. She is a useful idiot at the very least, if not doing this intentionally and deliberately. Because why? Again, she is trying to deflect the blame and the heat away from the people who clearly did it, and they themselves do not even deny doing it. Hasan Piker says he believes Tyler Robinson did it, but he's very happy, effectively, that Candace Owens is convincing the right that the left didn't do it, because obviously that empowers the left, who did it, to continue operating with impunity in their, you know, terrorist crusade in this country and ultimately continue to do this stuff more. Okay, Hasan Piker just made the same exact case that I've been making the entire time, trying to say this is why the left is promoting Candace Owens, why they like her. People said, no, that's not true. She's the real conservative. She's the one protecting Charlie Kirk's legacy. Oh, okay, so please explain to me why now the people who all celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk are celebrating her, right? I don't know. One of my big flexes, one of the things I'm proud of, you know, in life, and especially in this sector, in this industry, is I feel like I'm actually hated by the right people, right? Like you can tell who you are by who your friends are, who your enemies are, right? The fact that these people are my enemies, the fact that these people actually don't like me, but they do like people like Candace Owens, tells you a lot about like where you're aligned and you know, what it is there. So, but yeah, how coincidental that far-left communist who mocks the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Hasan Piker, oh, interestingly, is getting behind the woman who's trying to distract the right away from its chief and core and actually important political project, the very same woman who says she doesn't care about the midterms and is more or less encouraging Republican voters to sit out and all this stuff. But who do they call the reactionary fascists? I don't know, the Trump administration who's doing stuff, who's implementing an agenda, who's changing the country, the people who are largely behind that very political project to actually do something, to actually push back against the left, right? And then instead it's like the retards who are just like getting involved in conspiracies and exonerating the left and trying to make allies with the left that, you know, clearly you can see the worst people on the planet are also endorsing the other worst people on the planet. I don't know, just something to consider about that, right? I'm sure people will her fans will again try to do mental gymnastics to explain why actually You know, because Hasan Piker doesn't like Israel, that actually makes he's like our guy. He's on our side. Left versus right is a divide, bro. Never mind the fact that the left is like celebrating killing us, but like the left versus right is a divide. It's really the American people versus Israel. Therefore, we should unify with Hasan Piker to stop heckin' Israel and Epstein political class or something like that. Which, by the way, is unironically the way these people talk now. Okay, like that is a thing. That is a movement. I'm not even straw manning it. That is what some people say. But yeah, I don't know. If we have any Candace Owens fans watching the channel, please explain to me why your queen, your truth teller, your totally not just psycho B word is now endorsed by this person, huh? You know, you're totally on the right side, aren't you? Anyways, that said, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.